and welcome to the 2021 Widthwise Roundtable discussion on the state of the large format print sector here in the UK. I'm really pleased to be talking with some of the industry's chief players today for their grassroots take on how the sector is meeting the demands of what is a great reset and to consider the challenges and the opportunities ahead. At the start of this year, we polled 195 UK-based large format PSPs for the 14th consecutive Widthwise report. It showed that what has been the worst of times for some has indeed been the best of times for others in this sector. Nearly 2 out of 3 British wide format printers said their sales had fallen by more than 10% in 2020. Almost 1 in 2 had cut staff, a similar proportion had restructured business, and more than 8 out of 10 said they needed to take advantage of government aid during the pandemic. However, 13% saw turnover grow, some of those by more than 10%. Almost a third expected to hire more staff in 2022, and 2/3 were optimistic about business going forward. So where do we stand now? I've taken some of those key findings as the basis of the discussion we're going to hold now. So hello, gentlemen.
Good morning, Lesley.
If I can just ask each of you to introduce yourselves briefly, just in case there should be anybody in the industry who doesn't know who you are. That would be fabulous. And then we'll get on to the questions. So Simon, if we can start with you.
Good morning, everyone. Simon McKenzie from Hollywood Monster. We are a team of about 45, 50 post-pandemic with a turnover of between 9 and 10 million.
Richard.
Good morning. I run a business called Raccoon. Established in 1992, so been running for a long time. We focus on large format print with an emphasis on vehicle graphics, vehicle wrapping, and we have an offshoot business called Promo Hire, where we own a fleet of vehicles that we hire out for promotional activity that obviously gets a wrap and a conversion each time. So, diversification and trying to add value to print is kind of what we're all about most of the time.
Ashley.
Thanks, Lesley. Hi, I'm Ashley, CEO of Coca Expo. You might have guessed by the name. So I'm taking over from my father's business, actually, of 18 months ago. We're an exhibition supply company who has just entered into the large format print business, having come from a large format photographic background. So we're very much almost a new player in the large format print game, having dealt with print, a lot over the years for our products that we supply to the exhibition trade. So very much coming from a different angle to Simon and Richard. And looking forward to what the future can bring.
Hello, my name is Richard McComb. I'm from a company called Matic Media. We have a brand called Graphic Warehouse, which is large format trade print, and we're quite focused on technology and how we can use that in large format print.
Okay, then. Firstly, I suppose we should ask, how have things been for your business, just to set the scene? So, Simon, if we could start with you, how have things been?
Well, like everybody, Lesley, that sort of D-Day, I call it, when the Chancellor came on TV with the rescue package. The sort of 4 weeks around that time were dire. Our customers just fell off the face of the earth. Like every business, we had to try and reinvent ourselves and find a new niche. So we did a lot of work in sort of the PPE world, floor graphics, all that kind of thing. So our business, I'm pleased to say that during sort of May to October, it absolutely flew, considering that 80% of our clients weren't spending, our traditional clients. So we were doing very, very good, and then November sort of slowed down a little bit, and then December, January, February, and March were just the worst in our 30-year history, as you can appreciate. It was, like I said at the start of the meeting, it was almost like a game of two halves, really. So overall, we're about cash neutral from the start of the pandemic to now, which I'm pleased with. But yeah, very turbulent times and very worrying, for all involved, really.
Yeah. Richard, how have things been for you?
I suppose not too dissimilar to Simon. I would say that we probably suffered more at the beginning for the first 3, 4, 5 months, because a lot of our business over the last 5, 6, 7 years has been within the events industry, dealing with agencies, promotions, etc. That all went, and we didn't particularly make a big effort to chase the social distancing signage. I think in a way with staff furloughed, etc., that we used it as a period of time to, I suppose, just evaluate the company and think long and hard about what we wanted to be as we move forward. So like you said, the kind of great reset. So last year was probably more about, okay, what are we going to be doing in 2021? Not necessarily, what we're doing now. So that's what I focused my time on a lot. And we did restructure the business. We kind of slimmed down kind of what we're about and really focused and doubled down on what we think we're good at and where we think opportunities are. And then obviously moving into 2021, beginning of the year was quiet as we came out of the lockdown early in the year. We've just been very busy ever since then. So this year, from a turnover and profit perspective, I think we're quite close to kind of back to where we were in 2019. But the year before was a disaster. But we just have to draw a line under that, like most people, and kind of look to the future now. So yeah, that's us.
Ashley, how's it been?
Yeah, so not again, similar stories here from Simon and Richard. Having acquired the company in the January of COVID, and being an exhibition supply company, watching the news, thinking, oh, is this going to make its way over to Europe? And then, obviously 4 weeks later, pretty much, or 8 weeks later, but everyone's on furlough. When exhibitions don't happen, we don't sell to that trade, and that's our primary trade. So it was a very, it was concerning, obviously, and we tried to do what we could with the pandemic related products, but then you realize that everybody's doing the same thing, and and so you quickly realize that yes, we've sold some, but it's not going to be enough to sort of prop you up. So I guess safe to say, if I hadn't acquired the business, it would have been a very worrying time. So the sort of false hope of selling pandemic related products, thinking that's sort of necessary to survive, was what got us through emotionally, I guess. But then, I don't draw a salary from the business. This isn't my only business. I was, felt deeply for people that, obviously it is their primary business. So we've sort of used it as a time to innovate, invest, trying to think about the long-term plan of coming out the other side, of which we're now starting to see, obviously, as things pick back up. But yeah, sort of cautious optimism as we move forward.
Well, I mean, I suppose that takes us on to the next question quite nicely, actually, which is, what do you see as the key challenges now for your business and for the sector as a whole? I mean, the rising cost of supplies gave nearly 86% of those polled the biggest headache. And that was followed closely by the economy. So I suppose, are they your key concerns? What's the main thing for you now, Sam?
I think one thing that we've learned, and a business and life lesson from COVID, is not to have too much of your market share with one particular sector. So Ashley made a really good point there. We supply about 40% of our sales into exhibitions, and when they stopped, our business stopped. That's not healthy. I think my biggest concerns, really, if I'm honest, is will the market get back to the same size it was before? There's a lot of capacity in the market, with printers hungry for work, dropping their prices, making it a little bit difficult. I think the economies of scale there could be a factor. I think it's just a little bit too early to tell, really, how quickly or how much the market will recover.
Yeah. What about you, Richard?
I suppose, can echo some of what Simon said. I think we're not just looking at material costs rising, but we're looking at global inflation, aren't we? We're looking at inflation across everything. We've then got the added thing now of rising interest rates. They've got to go up. They're going to go up in the next 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, and in the next few years, we're going to be back to where we were with interest rates, moving forward. So all of these aspects are what I suppose is, any business is going to have to manage. And I think the key thing here is that we're going to have to pass those costs on as quickly as possible to our customers and then just suck it up, because there's no way that a business, especially in our industry where you need efficiencies, you need margins, where we can absorb our clients' inflated costs. You have to pass those costs on quickly and explain why. At the moment, everyone's seeing it, so everybody gets it. So if I say to my customer, I'm really sorry, my prices are going up by on average, 10%, say, they get it. So you have to have those conversations. And then if you lose business, it's the non-profitable business that you're going to be losing. So it's tough, but I think the sooner that, not just in our industry, but every industry just has to pass those costs through, then you're going to survive and it's going to be better.
Yeah. So. Ashley, what's your key challenge at the minute?
Yeah, sort of echoing what Simon and Richard are saying there about passing costs on. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you're a business and you can't absorb rising costs all around you without passing it on, and being upfront with your customers is critical. And of course, rising supply costs and the economy as a whole are critical. But over and above all that, I think it's just how complex it is to be in business at all at the moment from a technology perspective. And, print companies are being asked to be more dynamic and offer more, with a nod here to sort of textiles, garments, packaging, hybrid printers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's an increasingly software-driven world. And companies need to translate those sort of high-tech sales and marketing into an ever-expanding print market, And honestly, I think not, a lot of people are not capable of seeing that, let alone responding to that threat. So to answer the question, I would give a sort of very unromantic response that, investment is needed in software and technical staff. It's critical now more than ever, over and above the turbulence that we're experiencing at the moment of cost of supplies and the economy as a whole. So, for me, it's a sort of, without sounding like a worrying outlook, I think there's so many factors that are going to go into deciding the future of this type of industry. COVID has not helped, but, once we get past COVID and sort of costs maybe settle back down, it's then looking at what's happening with the actual industry before all of this, which is, I think more technical than it is hands-on. Yeah.
All right. So if I can ask the next question, which is, what's your chief focus now then going forward? As everybody might expect, growing turnover came out top in the poll. So is that your own main priority, Simon?
Customer service is what we're all about at the moment. More than ever, you've got to stand out from the crowd, haven't you? Like I mentioned in the previous comments, there's so much capacity in the market. We've got to make sure our client feels so loved, does not want to work with anybody else. We've got to make them feel locked in. We've got to make sure that they get what they want. We tell them when it's going to be there, be open and honest with them. I think that's the only USP we've got right now.
Yeah. Richard from Raccoon. I better identify separate Richards now.
Well, yeah, I can probably touch on that. I mean, I suppose what we're saying here is customer service, aren't we? So I don't think we've ever chased turnover as a business. It's never been my focus. Otherwise, I think I'd probably be a £10 million turnover business already, probably earning no money. Like most large format print companies that maybe chase turnover at the expense of all else. I think in the current market, with volatility and we're not too sure what's going to be happening in 6 months' time, I don't think that's the best approach. That's my way of seeing it. So I think it's a bit of everything, really. So we've been chasing technology and efficiency in the business, trying to bring in more automation. That's within production, that's within customer services, marketing, internal communications. So been working on those kinds of projects over the last 18 months. I'm sure I'm not alone on that. And I suppose maintaining margins at the moment is a big focus, like I just mentioned, and focusing on who our customers are, who are our kind of target market, and within, say, a market, who are the customers that we want in that market, because we all know that, within an industry, it doesn't matter which sector you're looking at, there's the good customers to have and there's the bad ones. And I don't think it's that kind of focus that we kind of work on now, and trying to get some insight on where our best margins are coming from, and to double down on those types of customer.
Yeah.
So that's I would have thought the best way to answer this question. Yeah.
No problem. Ashley, where's your key focus at the minute?
I think having, being a new entrant, well, relatively new entrant. I say new entrant. We've had printers, but nothing large format like we've got now. But I think the focus is what it means to be a print company in the digital era, when success is not defined by the quality of your product, but how you stand out on 1,000 different digital channels. Like Simon was saying, whilst remaining relevant, making it easy, for people to buy your products, and giving a good customer experience, and becoming eco-friendly, sustainable, all at the same time. All of that to achieve a higher turnover, but more important, to echo Richard, profitability. I don't think anyone chases turnover, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I think my theme throughout all this questioning really is having come from a software background, is how to apply software on the traditional print businesses. So our focus is always going to be that.
Well, that's interesting, because Richard McComb, I presume you've got a take on the whole software side of things.
We've spent the last 3.5 years trying to turn our business from a traditional large format signage company into just large format, and trying to commercialize that large format, because what we realized was we were making greater margin the more ink we spent. What we found last year is that come April, maybe not April, maybe that's been a bit facetious, but by May and June, we'd realized that our stars had come into alignment from everything we've been working on in the last few years. All the projects had stopped. We couldn't do any installation. Even the ones that we had pipelined, they didn't get fulfilled until June, July, when we were allowed to re-enter places, by which point we hadn't had any inquiries for installation. There were no office refurbishments coming in. There were no libraries getting done. There were no sports centres getting done in the public sector. So for us, all that work stopping was actually almost a saving grace, because it allowed us to focus on the side of the business that we've been developing, and which is largely technology driven, with web to print. And I suppose really since then, we've seen a lot more customers come on board, and then the customers and the demographic we're targeting, which has allowed us, I wouldn't say we've grown in turnover, but we've definitely grown in profitability, because we're much, much more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, this fits all in with the next question anyway, which is, to what extent are you diversifying? I mean, this is a question, obviously, that we ask every year on Widthwise. And now nearly 4 out of 10 of those polled PSPs this time around said that by 2030, large format print would no longer be their core business, given in fact that this is just large format PSPs we're polling. Yet in contrast, almost 2 out of 3 said they expected demand for wide format print to return to pre-pandemic levels in the short to medium term. So that's a bit of a conundrum, I suppose. And how do you see the biggest opportunities for growth within or outside of wide format for your own business? Simon?
I think that's what you just said is the sort of the point, really. Nobody knows the capacity going forward. If half of your customers or people you're asking the question to are saying it will be gone by 28, 29, 30, and the other half are saying the complete opposite, it's very difficult to put a strong case forward with a strong opinion. All I can say is that I think that the challenges that we face as a business commercially is that our traditional customers that we've had long-standing relationships with and trust each other very well, unfortunately, they've been through a very difficult financial time. So their balance sheets aren't what they used to be. Far from it, and everyone's suffered to some degree, some more than others. I think the biggest challenge for us is about £4 or £5 million of our sales is people in that sort of bracket I'm talking about that have had a really difficult, turbulent time financially. And you're finding that you're having difficult conversations with these people you've known for a long, long time. You've never had conversations like this before, of this ilk or this manner. And I think that, that's really difficult for us because we're trying to support them, but there's only so far we can do it financially. To insure our debts, and we do some factoring as well. So without sounding too reluctant to comment strongly on it, I just think that the bounce back has only really been sort of 5 or 6 weeks in our core sector of events and exhibitions. So I think that...
Are you having to diversify into other sectors there?
Well, I'll come back to that shortly. I just think in our core sectors at the moment, I just think we need another 2 or 3 months just to see how stable it gets and see what the future looks like. I loved Richard's comments earlier. It's exactly the same as our business. So the more ink you buy, the more margin that we make. We've got a business very similar to what Richard's sounds like. So we've got a sign company and a print company rolled into one. And the sign company it is profitable. It's got some great accounts, but with installation rollouts, so much can go wrong. The weather can affect it, machine breakdowns, travel, everything. With print, it's relatively straightforward, isn't it? You take the files, you artwork it, and you print it. So we've had our best month for about 5 or 6 years in August because our machines were literally printing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's not often that a printer can truly say that, but also truly say it with knowing you're printing stuff at good margin. But in August, those machines were full every single day with good margin work. We had the best month we've had for as long as I can ever remember. It was a really amazing month. And I just want to replicate that. And so going back to my initial comments earlier, customer service is paramount because picking up on, I think it was Richard Clark's point from Raccoon, that yes, we all need to get more margin, but you can't do that unless you're absolutely delivering the best service to stop my customers from going left or right. That's where you do get your margin increases because people don't mind paying a little bit more for those services. So I hope that's answered your question, Lesley.
Yeah. Well, over to you actually then Richard Clark.
Well, I suppose keeping it at the question of to
diversification.
Diversification. I think we've always been looking at, I suppose, the next opportunity as a small business. We're not a big business, small business. Always looking at the next opportunity and also the way to add value to everything we do, and whether that's adding value in customer service, adding value in additional services that are kind of packaged up with our printing, or where printing becomes a secondary part of what we do as a business. Again, it could be that we're taking on more projects where we're actually providing more creative services than we are print services. There's a lot of that happening now. Are we helping companies to manage their brand within their marketing team? We're doing more of that. We're setting up more portals for customers so that their own staff can access a broader range of marketing material. And it's that part where we're kind of charging, and then the print might be smaller margin and less turnover with that particular client. So that's where I see us moving, as we kind of go into 2022. But print's still there, but it's how people access your print and how you keep your presses busy, etc. That I suppose is the diversification part of what we're talking about. I suppose looking at other parts of our business, we are moving more into the events industry. It sounds crazy, but I suppose before COVID came along, we're in that space. And now that we're coming out of COVID, I see more opportunities in that space. Not the traditional exhibition space, and maybe not the larger scale event space where we've never really been, but more the kind of the localized ad hoc events that I think are still going to be taking place over the next few years. because there isn't an appetite maybe for so many really, really big events to take place. And you have had that entrepreneurial spirit where people are jumping in and filling gaps. Yeah. They're kind of filling the gaps. And, maybe we find it easier as a smaller business to then kind of deal with smaller events operators and lower key localized events, and people that are maybe doing things on more of an ad hoc last minute basis, which is, there's a lot of that going on at the moment. And so, that's kind of where we see the diversification within our business. But unfortunately, I would probably say that print is a key part of our business, but it's not all of our business anymore.
I mean, Ashley, in a way, getting into large format has been a diversification in itself for you. I mean, where do you see diversification, now for Coca Expo?
Yeah, I think we've always felt very, very familiar with large format print, even though we've never, as I said, coming from the photographic background years ago with, large format work, but it wasn't on a printer. You could say we were first in on it, but I don't believe many know what the state of play will be necessarily next year, let alone sort of 2030. So I think diversifying is a dangerous game if you get it wrong. But the one thing that seems to be certain at the moment is focusing on digital customer journeys and how that means you can then go on to print something, and that's a much safer bet. So I would say it's not necessarily diversification, but I guess digital transformation first. The only diversification being what customer journey you're backing here, in order to run your printers. But, it's a big industry, and I guess, we're always going to be focused on technology, but it's very, very interesting to listen to the others speak about it, for sure.
Richard McComb, how are things happening in terms of diversification with you?
I think we're always looking for other things that we can plug in. Yeah. The whole point of that graphic warehouse website was to trap the smaller users and purchasers of large format that maybe had complementary other services, like there might be a copy shop or a commercial printer, and there was maybe a bit of reluctance to work with some of the really big guys who properly taking commoditized items like banners and roll-ups and all these kind of things that we know are the absolute bottom of the food chain. But how could we trap them in with some of those things and then get them to buy other things? So the way we're looking at diversifying at the moment is really, how do we get more products in there, but streamlining them through the workflow so that we become experts in manufacturing the same thing over and over again. And I think we have something like 125,000 combinations mapped out in our system. And it has helped us I would say, definitely in the last year. The challenge we had up until COVID kicked off is, everybody was very focused on, I still got my little bit to focus on, and I want to do this and I want to do that. When it came to a crash and end for 2 months, there wasn't a choice. And without sounding like a narcissistic business leader, I basically got what I want, just by years of trying to sort of pitch this idea to people. But I think diversification for us at the moment is really looking at other products and services we can add in. And I think that will probably come from relationships with other organizations to almost create this kind of Amazon platform where you can get lots and lots of things, but we will actually just be managing it rather than manufacturing it all.
Interesting. Okay. On to something a bit different. 1 in 10 of those who were polled said the acquisition and mergers was a priority for 21-22. We've seen relatively few of those really so far. So what do you think about the changing shape of the wide format sector over the next couple of years? Do you want to kick off there, Richard?
Yeah, I don't mind kicking off. Well, I suppose 1 in 10 saying that it's a priority kind of tells you that it's not a priority for most businesses within our sector. It's not a priority for myself either to purchase companies or to try to be purchased. I think we're concentrating solely on just maintaining and growing our business in the way that we want to, keeping control of our business, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy running my own company. I don't want to sell out to some corporate unless they want to throw a few million quid at me, which I don't think is going to happen. So we just carry on. I don't think the market and the industry we're in is necessarily one where outside players are looking in. If you're just a large format print business, I suppose this then harks back to the last question about diversification. So if you're trying to add value into your company because you want to try and maybe sell it one day, then I'm not saying you couldn't do that as a solely large format print business, but you need to have something a little bit different and special somewhere for somebody to be interested, whether that is tech, whether that is a client base, a sector you're in, whether that is a kind of a diversification in how you do things so that, you're more than just a large format print business. I think that's what is going to interest a other company. Otherwise, acquisitions is only going to come from failures, in my mind. So failing large format print businesses and companies come along and swoop up what remains, gets the sales ledger and contacts and maybe a handful of good staff. And that's kind of what we've seen in the last few years. And I think, if I'm honest, going into 2022, that's probably what you're going to see a little bit of as well. Yeah.
What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, I think, having acquired the business in 2020, I guess that clarifies my position on, but it was my father's business. So I wouldn't classify it as a natural sort of acquisition, and I'm not really interested in acquiring anything else at the moment, but would welcome the opportunity to chat with people about it. But having said that, I think if the eventual goal of any acquisition isn't investing in sort of a digital transformation of an organization, if that target's not met, I'm not sure of the long-term purpose. It's not a natural thing. And I don't think in this sector to talk about mergers and acquisitions, and very much, maybe that landscape will change as digital sort of gets its way into the fabric of what we do. But yeah, that's my take.
Richard McComb, what are you thinking in terms of acquisition?
We have some gaps that we want to fill. So there's some services that we'd like to offer through distance selling. One of the options might be that we look at acquisition, but to be honest, I'm not probably very well placed to even know if somebody was up for sale and whether, I know you kind of hear things through the grapevine, but sometimes I think it's too late. We went down a route a few years ago about a possible acquisition, and being brutally honest, I felt like I was kind of out of my depth. I looked at their accounts and I compared their accounts to our accounts, and I'm okay with things like that. And there were lots of big wigs involved, and I just couldn't see how you make the numbers work on a business that was so far down the tubes. But there was another organisation in the north of England and moving it to Scotland that are buying up signage and display companies left, right, and centre, and they seem to be going at quite a rapid rate. But I think once you work out how to do it, it can be. It's just I think it can be quite simple once you're on that kind of train. I'm on the board for Print Scotland up here, and the print industry up here is still in a lot of distress. And we've seen in the last few years quite a lot of mergers, acquisitions going on, and I can't see it stopping. I mean, at the moment, most of the commercial printers up here are still operating between 40 and 60% of capacity, waiting for the leisure industry to reopen. So although it's not directly large format, we feed in and offer them a lot, so we have to know kind of where their position is. And that's why for the last year we've been actively trying to promote to them, look, sell large format print, because they needed to keep their customers. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of it. From a personal perspective, if I felt more confident on how to go through the process, and I'm sure if I really wanted to do it, I could reach out and find somebody that could guide me. And yeah, but at the moment, I don't really have that appetite.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing we're constantly hearing about, largely from machine manufacturers, I suppose, to an extent, are about the opportunities in various vertical markets, such as interior decor and with textiles and industrial printing applications. But according to the data that our PSPs in this sector gave us for Widthwise, to be honest, they're hardly falling over themselves, to invest in those new vertical markets. What's your take on that? Maybe we just start with you again, Richard Clark, seen as you the first one up there.
Tough for mine. Look, I mean, I suppose if you're in interior decor, you're in textiles, then you're probably going great guns at the moment. But to ask a general large format print business that's maybe printing lots of just, I don't know, whether it's self-adhesive, whether it's banners and boards, etc., which still is the meat and potatoes of what we do. Every company really, it's very hard for us to kind of move into these niche markets without kind of tying up the production processes with the sales and marketing processes, and how do you reach that market? Do you understand that market? So you kind of take a look and usually shy away, or you might buy a printing machine as a punt, and a year later think, why did I buy that machine that's sitting in the corner? Or sometimes I suppose you can have a success with certain things, but from my perspective, looking at interior decor, we don't get asked for it ever, so we're never going to kind of, I suppose, start hunting for that market. And textiles in general, I mean, I've been kind of looking at dye sub, and I've said this before on last roundtable, I think, a couple of years ago, that I've looked at dye sublimation for the last 20 years, never bought a piece of kit, and I'm still looking at it now. And it's just like you never quite get to that moment where you invest and go, right, yeah, we're gonna now offer this, because it's just there's other things to be doing on a daily basis, So
what do you feel, Ashley, about these vertical vertical markets with fabulous opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I understand exactly what Richard is saying there. In that, you can't just say, oh, tomorrow we're going to start printing, garments or whatever. So, not when the mainstay of your business is like, banners or boards, etc. But, again, really, I guess in my eyes, it's a result of not being able to transform to make yourself relevant to these types of customer, despite possibly having the ability and skills to cater to their needs. I believe that these are for sure rising applications, but the industry can't just simply turn to it, and expect to start working for them. So maybe it's that they never will, and younger companies, newer companies will enter into the market to service those requirements, rather than existing companies that find that transition, too unnatural. I think is more probably what we'll see.
Yeah. Richard McComb, what's your thinking?
I think I called you last year about this. I found it quite interesting that we were getting bombarded by the industry saying get into interior decor when we weren't allowed to go into anyone's home. We weren't allowed to go into an office. We weren't allowed to go anywhere, but we should be investing in interior decor. I just couldn't understand the whole marketing machine. But then I suppose if it's like a 2-year plan and this is what we're going to do, the funds and the people in the schedule had already been allocated. That just didn't make sense to me in the last year. Like I said, last April, you're not allowed into our building. If we're looking for customers that are repeat buying customers that we can scale out of, then the interior decor, if it's B2C, you've got to invest a lot of money to get that one customer in order to get your return on investment. The acquisition cost is enormous. So the only other thing you can do is go B2B and let your partner get the C. It's just not something I can see that you can scale it out of, and you can get repeat business out of the same customers.
Yeah.
No, it's not for me. Not that area. But we've had to look at. Yeah, of course. Like we have for a long time been printing flags and things in doors, but to put it in perspective, we got our first flag order 5 weeks ago in nearly 18 months.
Right.
So I was kind of like, maybe not, now is not the right time to go and buy a £250,000 die sub printer plus all the extras.
Something that might be more up your street, Richard, and the other sort of hot topic, I suppose, is personalisation and online ordering in general. Now we keep talking about, does the sector need to embrace web to print more rapidly than our data suggests? Because a tiny percentage of those polled, and I mean tiny, something like 1.5%, said they'd be investing in web to print across 21-22. So what are your feelings about web to print right now? If we should start with you again, Richard McComb, because obviously you're doing quite a lot of web to print.
I think web to print for us, it's more about your workflow. So last year, when the projects were all stopping, where I had to repatriate people across the business, and some of the guys, as we were bringing people back from furlough, because the way our business is physically structured, we were able to put people into bubbles there, and bubbles upstairs, put night shifts on and put them into a separate bubble. But I had to take artwork guys and put them in on the shop floor because there wasn't anything coming through as far as creative. And they weren't doing any disc checking anymore because we'd automated all that. So as the artwork comes in online to us, it'll go into the customer service team. And the customer service team can disc check on behalf of the customer, or the customer's doing it themselves as they're uploading artwork. And then it gets released into the RIP queues and put into hot folders and distributed into sort of zoomed cutting queues and whatever else. So for us, web to print is not really about personalization insofar as we're not targeting B2C with a personalized canvas anymore. And the reason for that is because the acquisition cost, which I mentioned earlier, is too great to get to those consumers, and they don't buy repeatedly, and they're not loyal, and they'll only buy on price. So we target repeat buying trade customers, and it is personalized in the respect that everything in large format is almost unique. We're not printing 100 panels, we're printing 100 panels of a hoarding with each impression, which is different because it's got a cover all the way down the street. So for us, trying to get those files from the client side computer into our workflow is paramount. And that's, I think, where web to print is really in its element. I don't really think web to print as in personalizing, I don't know. I mean, it will become 3D models and things eventually. We'll see that. There are print farms, I think, out in Belgium that are taking this and running uniques through there. But I don't think web to print is how people realize it is really how it works in your business.
Yeah. What do you think, Ashley, about the whole web to print scenario?
Yeah, interesting to listen to Richard there. I think, web to print is part of the future, but it's software. And given my comments on digital thus far, it's not really printing, but digital printing. It's digital transformation, and I don't think the two sides have met yet. On one side, you've got your traditional print company. On the other side, you've got a digital journey where the customer's essentially submitting, and signing off a print job from their PC themselves. To keep it simple, I think the companies that invest in web to print will succeed, but the timing is not necessarily clear on when to do it. And as for personalization, I think as you embrace more digital centric journeys for your customer, personalization comes with it. But there's no point personalizing something if you don't have web to print, because they don't sort of go hand in hand, I don't think. Well, you can't do one without the other, so to speak, as easily as you could if you did them both. So I think it's definitely one to watch. Again, like the previous question, it's not necessarily straightforward to just start offering that type of service, but it should be something we look to more and embrace more digital rather than traditional processes.
Yeah. What about you, Richard Clark?
Never thought. I thought you was never going to come to me on this one.
Yeah,
right. So Richard's comment on workflow being the important part, he's 100% correct on that. So the business has spent some good time over the last 18 months because we've had some time to really reevaluate how we do things within the production workflow. And I think one of the key parts is that kind of, I call them touch points with customers. And it's acknowledging that we've got a wide range of customers. So we've got those established individuals that we deal with that just want to pick up the phone and have a chat, talk through a job. And then we have the other end, which is the customer that never wants to pick up the phone, only ever wants to deal with you via email, maybe WhatsApp, live chat, completing a form on a website. And it's kind of, how do we make it easy for any kind of customer that we deal with to connect with us efficiently, and for us to connect with them and to be able to digest the inquiry or digest the order that they're giving to us as quickly and easily as possible. And once it's within our business, how do we then communicate internally and externally with the customer and our team to make sure that that job is managed efficiently, as automated as possible, automation being the big thing at the moment, and the communication with the client is again efficient, automated. They're getting updates, they can check in and see where their job is, has it been dispatched, has it been delivered, etc., etc. And also, if they want to reorder, how easy is it for them to reorder that job, and how easy is it for us to take that reordering and quickly get it through the business. And it's all of those things that we've been looking at. So we've got a mix of a web to print offering for what I call retail customers. So, we get a lot of inquiries where somebody wants to have a 10-minute chat about a £50 value order, which nobody in my company wants to have. Yeah. So we direct them straight to a retail site, go on there, see the products we sell. And if you want to place an order. Even if they come back to us non-automated, they might drop an email back and say, hey, I just went on your site and saw this product. Can you give me a price of this? At least they're more educated at that point. And so it's kind of the touch points that we've been working on, and then the internal workflows to be efficient. And that then equals profitability as a company. So, that's my way of answering the question about web to print. Web to print isn't just having a website and somebody puts an order and gives it to you to print. It's a lot more than that. And I suppose, that's what we're all striving towards.
Yeah. I mean, looking at investment in general in new technology, I mean, investment's pretty flat. Now, on 2/3 of the respondents to the poll said they would spend under 20,000 on large format technology in 21-22. And more than 3/4 said they weren't investing in software or finishing kit at all. So are you spending? And if so, where and why? And given that improving efficiency is a must-do for many PSPs, why did less than 1 in 10 say that they plan to invest in Industry 4.0 technologies for smarter working? Something that sort of really surprised me again. I might as well start with you again, Richard, from Raccoon. I mean, I know we've talked about Industry 4.0 at roundtables before, but what's your thinking on investment in technology at the minute?
We've been investing a lot in the last few years, and I think we've doubled down on it in the last 12 months on software and technology. So we, as I've written in your magazine already, need to finish that one off as well with another edition. Look, we've been investing in software and tech, and it's time consuming, it's costly, doesn't come without pain, and Richard McComb will probably agree with me on that. However, I think it's essential. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business in 5 years. And I'd say 5 years. I think the change within our industry is moving that fast. That if you're not, and when I say 5 years, the reason being is that your competitors are investing in that. So if you're not, you're falling off the curve. And I've seen two types of company in the last year within our market sector. I've got people I know who have decided not to reinvest. So they're sticking with their old kit. So they're sticking with their 7-year-old 3.2 meter machine, their flatbed that's 8 years old, that's not quite as good as it was, their latex printer that, doesn't print particularly well anymore, and then the operators having to nurse it along, and they've kind of reduced their business size. And I can understand why people have gone down that path. And then you've got the other side where people are going, I'm going to double down and invest in my business to safeguard it for the future. And I suppose we're in that camp. So we are investing in software, and we are investing in hardware, and we are investing in people in the business at the moment, so that we can take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be coming up in 2022 and beyond. Because I think that there is a lot of opportunity out there for companies within this space.
Ashley, what's your thinking on investment?
Yeah, just really interesting comments there. I think as we are sort of just back in the large format print game, we're quite unique compared to the others here. We obviously, as you know, we started out doing the large format print work, not just printing, but photographic processes of old. So we've, to address that, made some significant investments to get us back in the game, so to speak. But our continued efforts toward a more digital future and a move towards some manufacturing actually is a priority for us. And I think Industry 4.0, as it's called, is one step too far for most at the moment. Not to say it's not part of the future, but I can see that it's not the immediate concern for most. But everybody knows they need to invest in technology in general. I just think people often confuse what that actually means.
If we're talking automation and remote diagnostics and things like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as the others have said, these aren't simple topics, and I guess it's to be wary of new entrants into the market that might be much more digitally focused and be automating from day one, rather than trying to introduce automation. I think a lot of the times with technology, something to be concerned about is the speed that you can come in and take over, as an entrance into a market, rather than trying to transform an existing business because you don't have the time or the money necessarily to do it. So there's, I think, as I keep going on about how digital goes on to affect our industry as a whole is where we're sort of trying to look to, so investment in software and digital technology is critical, but not so clear.
Okay, what about you, Richard McComb?
On first thoughts, I would go, no, we've not really spent any money on anything this year. And then just as other people are talking, I'm like, no, wait a minute. We've actually, everybody's got a new laptop. Everybody's got a new handheld device that allows them to communicate across the building, because we couldn't. Recently, about 4 weeks ago, I decided that everybody that was non-essential at work had to go back and work from home. It wasn't a choice, and lots of people still want to remain at home, but so we had to give them the right platforms. So we've had to do a lot of updating on our CRM.
Right.
We've recruited another software person to come into that team and continue to develop some areas there. We've invested in third-party consultancy in the last 12 months to come in and support us with digital marketing strategy that we're working on. So the investment is very much there about growing and developing the business, but it might not actually be in hardware. Yeah. And there have been some bits of hardware, but only just because you kind of go, that's on the market, that would actually make that easier.
Yeah.
No, but was it strategic? Probably not. And I think it's easy to make these decisions. We had a very good year last year, so we're sitting in a very different place to where we'd been before. You were able to make decisions about, would I like to buy this machine next year? Well, yeah, we can consider it, but we're not in a place to buy it just now because we've got infrastructure issues. We have to demolish those offices. So one of our investments is going to be over the winter that the offices are all getting demolished because the staff aren't coming back. And they have told us they didn't want to come back in. So when I said a few weeks ago, we'll all have to go, but we had a real big problem here in Lanarkshire with all the schools when the kids went back to school. So rather than take it into the building, we just went back and worked from home. But I think it kind of hinting, I think maybe what Richard Clark was saying there was that, yes, we do have to keep investing, but it's only possible for those of us to invest if we've got actually the cash and resource or anything left from Seabull's loans from last year to invest. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people there who are not going to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to move on and ask actually about environmental issues, because obviously that's another hot topic with all the net zero pledges now being made publicly and all the rest of it. But over 70% again of the PSPs we polled said that it had become more important for them to be seen as environmentally friendly than it was 2 years ago. Nothing surprising there. But what we thought was a bit more surprising was that 43% still said that few clients asked to see any of their eco-credentials or policies, and 21% said no customers do that. So where does this sector need to focus its attention to becoming a greener part of the whole value chain, do you think? And should we start with you, Ashley, for a change?
Okay. I think people want to be seen as environmentalists because, they care about the planet, obviously, and that's become, more important now than ever before, given the rise in media attention, etc. But that has not yet translated into how they can operate differently to how they were before in what is typically a hugely wasteful industry. And people take this for granted, hence, not even asking for credentials, about your green credentials in the first place. They just sort of know, well, if I'm printing, it's an exhibition, I'm going to be throwing it away afterwards, or, it's sort of, I can understand why people aren't asking for these credentials, but, we will start to see more succeed who put this first. Which involves major change on top of recovering from the pandemic and investing in the digital future. So we've done our part by only using certified eco inks and safe recyclability mechanisms on our printed products, as well as using sustainable materials in our product ranges. But we've all got, I think, a lot further to travel and prove to customers, really, which goes into the whole customer journey and customer handling, that we actually do put it first operationally, because I think we need to. I think that everyone's waking up to we've got to take care of the planet, and our industry is going to have some transformation that goes on in that area as well.
Yeah, Richard McComb.
This could be a Ratner Gold retail shop moment, in that you've got to be so careful what you say in this matter. But I still feel that people just don't care enough to drive it through the industry. Everybody says that they want to be doing it. Everybody says that they should be doing it. We're getting exposed to things like Kevlar and PVC free. We've just been asked to do, I think, half a dozen venues for COP26. They didn't ask what we'd be offering. Didn't ask what material we print on, didn't ask about our inks. And then last week it was like, oh, do you have an environmental policy? We're like, yeah. Do you have I said, well, we don't have 18,001, but we've got a management document that mirrors what 18,001 would be, and that gets assessed at the same time as we do our 9,001. We just haven't merged them yet. Oh, no, that's fine. Tick.
Yeah.
It's not getting pushed through, and I don't think it can get pushed through from the little guys. So our customers are SMEs across the whole of the UK. They don't care. They're pounds and pence.
Yeah.
We deal with 13 local authorities in Scotland. They don't care. They're under such duress on budget that they would like to tick the box. We've offered to do automated curbside marking on the printed matter that comes out of the machine, so we can actually say, look, this can be recycled in this way with the recycling mark with the number in it, depending on what the material is.
Right.
Don't want it. Don't care. And I think until the bigger purchasers, and if your client base is Tesco and Boots and central government, then it isn't going to filter down.
Interesting. What do you think, Richard Clark?
I'm probably in the Richard McCoon camp. Unfortunately, I mean, on a personal level, I think the environment's important. I kind of live a fairly simple life. My footprint's quite small, but within my business, there is a lot of waste. And when I say there is a lot of waste, unfortunately, we are in an industry where, there is a lot of material waste in manufacturing and in the life. It's getting better. There's definitely a broader range of products out there now, and there's lots more non-PVC products that we can be printing onto, and we do. And it's not just driven by the client anymore. We're trying to source better products, and we're thinking as a company about the materials that we purchase to print onto, and are they recycled? Can they be recycled at end of life, etc. I suppose my bugbear is what I call, and people call, greenwashing, and that is, again, I find that annoying and frustrating, because you do have customers that they're just wanting to kind of it's kind of flag waving, isn't it? There isn't a true environmental saving within things that we do, but it needs to be kind of presented like there is. We're doing work for certain retailers where they're saying we want everything to be non-PVC, which is fine. We're printing on non-PVC, but I know, and I think it happens, is that at end of life that just goes into landfill. So non-PVC window graphics that we might print for a chain of shops, at end of life they're taking it off the window, and the person taking it off is not aware that that's non-PVC, and they can put it into their mixed recycling bin. They just put it into the normal waste bin. So it's those things, but I don't know what the answer is to that. And again, as Richard said, it's kind of not for us as a small business to be able to drive that through our industry, etc. It needs everybody involved, and I'm sure we'll get there slowly but surely over time. And
taking a while. Richard McCoom, you had something to add?
Yeah, we are signing up at the moment, going through the process of signing up for carbon offsetting through one of our suppliers. The challenge is it has to all go through that supplier. So for this COP26 stuff that we'll be doing, we will purchase everything through this one supplier for this particular event. And it means that if it's PVC, there'll be a carbon offset per ton or per kilo, and we'll pay that levy in. But that doesn't really offset the year's worth of 5 mil and 3 mil PVC I've just purchased last week, because not last week, about 6 weeks ago, because I'm frightened in case the industry runs out, and it's one of our biggest sellers.
Yeah. I'm going to actually move on to our final question, because I'm aware that I'm taking up a lot of your time. But back in spring of this year, and the fear of further lockdowns and worry over paying back government loans, etc., and what was going to happen about the economic bounce back, they were all flagged up as reasons for sleepless nights for PSPs. But there was great optimism too. So could I just ask you, are you optimistic now or not about your own business, and perhaps for the large format print sector in the UK in general? Do you want to kick off, Richard Clark?
Yeah, I don't mind. I'm quietly optimistic about my own business. I think we worked hard here, not just me, but the team, my business partner, pretty much everyone that's here. And we have got, we're not big. We've probably got 20 members of staff, around that number. And yeah, we're all working hard, and I think everybody's got the interests of the company, kind of there. So we're in a good place. And I think, we have a winter to get through, and I don't think this winter is going to be brilliant because of, I don't know, there's a lot of, this, kind of, it's a bit destabilizing at the moment, isn't it? Whether it's the fuel crisis or, inflation, et cetera, and, the fear of another lockdown or a fourth wave, et cetera. There's all those things to contend with as a small business owner and as a country. But I think once we get beyond this winter and into the spring of 2022, I think we should all be in a good place at that point for next year to really kind of open the floodgates to the kind of activities, whether it's events, whether it's retail, whether it's just general business promotion and marketing that we all feed off of. I think 2022 will be that year where it does come back properly. This year was very ad hoc, very last minute, very responsive as an industry. I think next year we're going to get back to more of that kind of, 3, 6, 12 month of a planning cycle for businesses and what they're thinking about, where they want to be, and we feed from that. So there'll be a lot more kind of pipelines of work, and that we need that because that it gives you the comfort to shape your business and grow your business, kind of looking a little bit further down the line. So I think, definitely optimistic for 2022. Financially, we're not in a bad place. I think if a year ago I was told that I'd be in this financial position as a company, I'd be happy with that. So, we haven't taken on shed loads of debt. We're not struggling to pay bills, and we will go through the winter kind of as we always do, with a slightly reduced turnover compared to the summer, but we cut our cloth accordingly, and we kind of do shrink back a bit as a company to make sure that we kind of come through the quieter months, with some resilience. So optimistic.
That's good. Are you optimistic, Ashley?
Oh, massively so. No, we've used COVID as a chance to transform and innovate, and unlike a lot of others actually enter into the large format print business. So yes, we are optimistic. Of course, it's been a rough ride, but we've got to stay optimistic. I just think cautiously so. Caution's key as businesses to they continue to print, but also reflect on everything we've discussed in an evolving print sector. So cautious optimism mixed in with, I guess, some digital green, web to print, sustainable 4.0 transformation.
Not a lot to think about then.
That's easy and easy, simple.
What do you think, Richard McCoon?
I call myself a pessimistic optimist. It's garbage today, but it'll be great in the future. I've been saying for 6 months, I said, we'll have an okay summer. I said, we'll have a really good September, really good October. November will tail off as usual. December will be utter garbage. So will January, maybe February. I think by the time the event industry opens back up again in March, and ideally, we don't all suffer too much with the 20th wave or whatever it might be in the winter months, then I think things will come back with a bang. I most of my time now is spent on marketing for our business, and I work with others either in the business or outside the business, but a lot of it is sort of looking at analytics and numbers, and I can see the customer base growing, I can see the amount of activity growing, but I can see the average transaction value being lower than where I would expect it to be. So I was explaining to my team the other day, I says, look, if this average transaction value was just slightly higher, this is what our turnover would be this month. And we've already hit target. So I think that next year will be really, really good.
Good. Well, look, on that sort of note of optimism, I'm going to say a thank you to all of you for really valuable insight. I mean, this is why we do Widthwise. It's to get this grassroots input. So I really appreciate it. obviously we'll be asking you all the same questions all over again in January when we start next year's Widthwise. But obviously, in the meantime, if people haven't already done so, the 2021 report can be downloaded from the website. And just again to say thank you, gents. Really appreciate your input. And obviously, let's keep our channels of communication open so we know what's going on. But thank you again. Cheers.
Cheers, Lesley.
Thanks, Lesley. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you.